It was a glorious thing to have happened, because I found out a lot of things. I found out how many friends I had that came who wanted to help. I found how many people liked my work because they flooded me with work. Newspaper reporter came to sympathize because it was, everybody said, well, did you hear Russell broke? He's lost his entire fortune up there. So newspaper reporters came up to my studio, and when the servant opened the door, I was sitting there with the evening clothes, because we dressed for dinner in those days. I wish that time would come back to the game. Always dressed for dinner. So I dressed for dinner. Dinner wasn't ready, and I was seated at that pipe organ that you can see down there in the photograph of the studio, playing Tchaikovsky. And one of these reporters said, well, you don't look like a man who's broke. I said, well, I'm not, because I'm the kind of a man who couldn't be broke. But you see, I meant to tell you that because we should judge all things, look at all things as glorious experiences, out of which good can come. When one meets a defeat, or something that looks like a defeat, and I say those things will come to every man, because no man can work independently, all alone on this planet, just between himself and his Creator. He must work with other individuals, and he must work in an environment of which he is a part, in a civilization which he has made. Because every man's thinking makes civilization as it is. The sum total of every man's thinking is what civilization is as a whole, and he's a part of it. And he's got to take the benefits and the consequences of any accidents or any the actions of other men that bring on a panic. That one is in the swirl of that, he must take it. But he must take it gloriously. Not as men who telephoned me from Bellevue Hospital one day and said, may I come up to see you? I said, who are you? He said, I'm a shell shock victim, and I'm in Bellevue Hospital. I'm to be here for 2 years. Or at least they said so. But he said, I'm cured, utterly cured. I read a little book Glenn Clark wrote about you, and it cured me at once. He said, and I passed it on to the others, and they read it, but they weren't cured, and I wonder what's the matter with them, why they couldn't be cured. I read it, it cured me. And I said, well, what do the doctors say about it? They say that they said something was wrong, and I'd better go back to bed again because it would come back on me. But I insisted. They gave me a 4-day test. They had to let me out. I'd like to come up and see you. I'm going back to Kansas City and go back into my oil station, filling station that I have there. So when he came, I said, will you tell me what in that book it was that cured you? That said you were cured of shell shock by reading it. Yes, he said. Somebody had asked you if you'd ever known defeat. And you said, why no. Defeat is something you have to accept. And until you accept it, you're not defeated. So he said, I came to the conclusion that I had accepted defeat. Accepted defeat in the words of the nurses and the doctors who told me I was shell-shocked and had to take me 2 years to get over it. Well, I accepted that, and sure, I was there. I didn't know how I got there. I was knocked unconscious, and there I found myself in a bed. They were holding my hand, and there was a chart over my bed with my temperature and things on it. People talking about me. For the first time in my life, I found myself important. They were talking about me. Nurse rubbed my back with alcohol and would put me to sleep. I liked that. Sure, I liked being shell-shocked. I accepted the idea. I got 2 years of that. But as soon as I read your book, and I found that I wouldn't accept it, I was as well as ever. Now, nothing really was the matter with that man. He wasn't cured of anything. He merely had accepted, from the sensed existence, he accepted a fact, a so-called fact, that misled him into that belief. And so we have all sorts of things happen to us that we say we cannot help. We have losses, or we have sicknesses or things. We made them. If we didn't make them individually, we made them collectively. And if we made them, we've got to stand for them, just as we are now making what we've got to stand for as a whole world condition. And the mental existence, the mind existence rises above all of that. It says, what are they? You're not. There's something greater than the body. There's something greater than man. There's something greater than civilization. An awareness of the fact that man has been breaking the laws of nature that's caused all of that, say, very well, that's good too. It's time that we repented and believed and turned the other way and with our eyes toward the Creator instead away from it. And that's good. And life is glorious. And the whole experiment of the unfolding idea of man is a glorious experiment, a glorious idea, a glorious unfolding. From the jungle to the mountaintop of cosmic consciousness, it's a marvelous thing to think of. How consciousness can come in and dominate a body until the consciousness is all and the body is forgotten. It's a marvelous idea of God's creation. And we should be so overjoyed to think we're a part of it, no matter what part of it, no matter what time in the history of creation. No matter what time. It doesn't make any difference what time it is anyway. We'll be here again and again and again in many other times. We've seen it before in many of its phases. We're seeing it now in many of its phases. What are we going to collect out of it in this experience? No matter what it is, what are we going to collect out of it which we put in both the patterns of our bodies and our soul memories? How are we coming out of it when we tire of this body and get another? That's the thing to remember. That's the thing to work for. When you come back and start just as much from the point that you left off as you do when you wake in the morning, and start from where you left off the night before. And that's why what we call old souls remember all that they have done before and carry it on. That is why the older souls of the race become advanced over those who have lived in the body more in each of their incarnations. That is why a genius comes here and there out of 100,000, 1 out of past 10 million, and leaves something of his own eternal self in our culture that gradually and slowly uplifts the whole human race. That's the one thing to work for, that's the one thing to live for, that's the one thing to realize. The mental existence and the absolute domination of the physical existence by the mind. As I say last week, the trend of it was in that domination to have a larger awareness of it in the effect of reducing one's time in experiment cutting out reasoning. I might say a word about that because we spend too much time, as we say, reasoning. Now reasoning is taking these sense memories out and putting them together and arriving at a better result of what is by putting 2 or 3 of them together or a dozen of them together, reasoning them to a point and we get a better body. True, yes, we get a body. The man just out of the jungle reasons because that he can float on a log, well then he can hollow it out. We have hundreds of experiences, we read thousands of books, and we reason by taking the memories of all those from our books and reason them out, and we think we're thinking. We're not. We're doing an awful little bit of thinking. We're trying to think without any fulcrum under the lever at all. Well, if there's any fulcrum under the lever, its consistency is that of a baked apple, not a solid rock. the fulcrum on which the lever of the wave of water arises, that fulcrum of water is as solid as though it were a mountain of rock.